Hey, it's a new year and I want to give you some new strategies that you can use to get a deal done, a seven-figure deal done in 2021. Okay, first things first, I see people not making enough offers and also not knowing what to look for before they make offers. That right there, I mean, if we're really talking about it, those are the two biggest items I see people not getting right. First, they're not making enough offers. They make one offer every 6 months. That is not enough. I can almost assure you that is not nearly enough. And then number two, you're making the offers at the wrong businesses. Now, we could talk a lot about how to pick the right business. I mean, that is a very substantial topic. Hell, you can read 50 years of Warren Buffett's shareholder letters. I mean, this is a thick book. Look at all those pages, right? You could read all of that in many other books and not learn everything there is to know about how to pick the right company to buy. So I'm not going to try to dive into that in this video, but here's what I will say for you to get the deal financed, to get the money, right? To get the money, you need a business where line 21 of the tax return for each of the trailing 3 years is thick. Now, what do I mean? First of all, line 21 is the actual reported income a business showed on their federal tax returns in the United States of America. And that is the line that matters. That is the line that makes or breaks bank financing ultimately. Is there considerable income on line 21? If you look at the big one page for the tax returns, you're going to see the gross sales. Okay, and you're going to see depreciation and interest and salaries and wages and officer compensation, all these expenses. And then finally on line 21, you're going to see a number. And if that number is equal or very similar to the number the seller is saying he or she makes a year in income, then you have a deal that you can get done. But often what happens is sellers write expenses through the business. They show less taxable income, yet they want credit for more taxable income. And when you're working with bank financing, which let's be honest, almost all of you are, you need that true taxable income. That is the big one, okay? If the deal you're looking at does not show taxable income for the trailing 3 years, then you can basically kick bank financing goodbye. At that point, it either means the seller needs to finance the deal, or it means the deal is just not going to happen unless you're going to raise all private capital, which means you're not going to keep any equity in your deal, which means it's no longer worthwhile for you, the acquisitions entrepreneur. Okay, another thing that I would really recommend you do in 2021 and forward, and this is something that I am learning in real time, this is something I have learned in the last several months, is how important it is to buy the aged receivables and the aged payables of the business. Basically, buy the current assets and the current liabilities. Why do you want to buy the current assets and the current liabilities? I don't mean buying the current liabilities like you're buying the you're not buying the lawsuits, okay? Preferably you do an asset purchase and you leave any of the lawsuits that the prior seller had with the prior seller's legal entity and you create a new legal entity. You just buy the assets of the business. When I say current assets and current liabilities, really what I mean is age payables and age receivables. I highly recommend you structure a deal where you procure the age receivables and the age payables when you buy the company. Why? And what are the age receivables and the age payables? Of course, you could Google this, but for the sake of time, the age receivables are monies that are owed to you because you've already performed the service. And age payables are bills you have to pay for services or for products that you've already used or things you've already consumed, right? And for many businesses, and this is a very important item, you need to figure out what the cash flow cycle of the business looks like. But in many businesses, they may be operating on a net 30, which means basically after you complete the service, you then have 30 days for your client to pay you. And what I can tell you is if you do not buy the age receivables and if you do not buy the age payables, I mean, you're not excited about the age payables, but if the age receivables are much larger than the age payables, then buying both is a good thing for you because it means you have a lot more money that's going to come in than you have money that's going to go out, right? If you're looking at a business that has $200,000 in age receivables and $10,000 in age payables, you procuring both the age receivables and the age payables is going to make an approximate $190,000 difference in that example. You see what I mean? Right? What's nice is when you buy the age receivables, you're going to have money that's going to be coming in from day one. Whereas if you do not buy the age receivables, you're going to have to build a list of age receivables and then you're going to collect those age receivables. So it may take you, if you're dealing with a business that operates on a net 30, it may take you 30 to 60 days until you really start taking money in if you do not buy the age receivables, which is why I recommend in 2021 and beyond, you negotiate the age receivables. And then of course, naturally, you're going to have to include the age payables too in the businesses that you buy. And this is especially, again, important when it's a longer cash flow cycle that the business operates in, A, and B, it's especially important when the age receivables are much larger in this business that you're looking at than the age payables. By the way, you can also use the age receivables as something that you can pledge. It's collateral. It's an asset. An age receivable is an asset. It's money you're owed. Many lenders will very much collateralize that as a part of giving you the acquisition financing. So including the age receivables also can help you get the financing for your deal. It can help you close the deal. Using the age receivables can help you get more working capital. You can pledge the age receivables. You negotiate it in the purchase agreement. You then pledge those age receivables to the bank. The bank can give you working capital with the age receivables basically collateralizing those funds that they're now gonna give you in working capital. So there's a very powerful thing you can do there, okay? But look, there's more. One big item is you really need to look at business acquisitions you're considering. You need to look at the operational hierarchy and the organizational chart of the company. Does this company have strong people? Is it a company that can thrive? You can hear the fireworks back here. You can tell it's New Year. Happy New Year, by the way. Right? But in this business that you're thinking about buying, does it have strong people? This is so important. I know we said we wouldn't talk too much about all of this Warren Buffett type stuff, about buying great companies, but obviously we're going to talk about it some. And if there's really two things I had to talk about, it would be great people in a great sector. Two things, really just two. Great people, great sector. Great people means there's strong management already in place, and these people are going to really help you go forward. And then naturally, a great sector is a sector where there's growing demand, preferably a sector where it's recession resistant, a sector that cannot be influenced greatly by legislation. Okay? Bars and restaurants in the service industry has proven not to be the kind of sector you want to get involved in. 2020 showed us that. Right? The manufactured housing sector proved to be a sector that is completely recession resistant. We had 100% economic occupancy in our deal out here in Nebraska. My first company was bought in Nebraska in the month of March, April, May, June, July, August, and September. We had 100% economic occupancy. You know what? We might have had our first month of 100% in April. I'm not sure if we had finished our remodel in March. But certainly for 6 months straight in the middle of COVID, we had 100% economic occupancy. Every single one of our tenants, we have 30 some odd tenants out there, every single one of them paid for 6 months straight. 100% occupancy. Everyone paid. That's a good business. That's the kind of business you want to get involved in. I can tell you with our Florida project here in the Tampa Bay region that we have tons of bid requests right now, tons of opportunities to do work, tons of opportunities to install plumbing. Remodel, new construction, service, demand through and through. It's a good business. It's a good sector. We're in a hot market here in Florida, in Tampa Bay. Nebraska, even though it's not a sexy market and it's not a big market, it's a strong market. So you need to get into a strong industry in a strong location with strong people. If you can find businesses that have those characteristics, raising the money becomes easy. It becomes a lot easier. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I do not spend the majority of my time raising money. I spend the majority of my time looking at deals and analyzing deals and being discerning, not buying any old thing. It's this very discernment that is giving me access to much larger deals now. Some of you who are following me on Instagram at Jason Paul Rogers know that we currently have an 8-figure LOI right now. Next weekend at this time, I'll be in a large city, a little north of me, analyzing an 8-figure target. Why are we getting access to 8-figure targets? Well, one, there's not a lot of operators right now in the sector I'm in. But two, it's because we're getting the credibility now to go on and do bigger things because we've made the right decisions with our last two acquisitions, my first two acquisitions. So when you get it right repeatedly, now people start giving you bigger opportunities They put you in the bigger games. And so this is what happens when you build a track record. Now suddenly you start getting bigger opportunities. And that's what's happening to us. And this is what can happen to you. Look, 2 years ago, I didn't have a clue about buying businesses. I was just starting to learn 2 years ago. Just starting to learn. I started learning in November of 2018. I closed my first deal in August of 2019, closed my second deal in November of 2020. And if I didn't have to pivot sectors, I got into real estate initially, something generally I don't recommend if you're super ambitious, because in real estate, you're buying businesses at 8 to 15 times earnings. Whereas if you're buying a service business, for example, you can buy it at 2 to 5 times earnings. So think about that for a second. Do you want it to take 8 or 15 years for you to pay off the business? Or would you rather pay off the business in 3 or 6 years? Getting into the manufactured housing sector was something in retrospect. It was a good business, good sector. It's been fine, but it's not as much upside as getting into true business. An initial mentor I worked with recommended I get into the manufactured housing sector. He honestly didn't lead me astray, but once I really realized what I was doing, I realized, no, you're better to get into true business. I would get into a service business if I was giving somebody advice. Because there you can buy these businesses at 2, 3, 4, 5 times earnings, as opposed to in real estate, again, 8 to 15 times earnings. If you're very ambitious, buy businesses. That's what Warren Buffett did. Berkshire Hathaway, you've probably heard of it. Berkshire Hathaway was the name of the first acquisition Buffett made in 1965. He bought the Berkshire Hathaway Mills, textile mills up in the Northeast. And do you know what? It was a bad deal. He got it at a great price, but the demand wasn't there. The demand for textiles was going down. So even though he got it at a great price, it's almost like buying a bag of feces, a bag of poop. Oh, you got a great deal on it. Yeah, but it's a bag of you-know-what. S-H-I-T. Do you really want a great deal on a bag of S-H-I-T? No. No, you don't. Right? So this is something you have to remember. But you know what? Warren was smart. He kept swinging. He bought a bank up in Illinois. He bought an insurance company and then another one. And eventually he bought Geico. He bought See's Candy. He bought Westco Financial. He bought a number of businesses. He continued to make business acquisitions. And it helped him create a ton of wealth so that by the time he got to 1980, he was very, very, very wealthy. And the rest is history. Now Buffett's worth, I think, $65 billion. And I know he's donated approximately $40 more billion to charity, which means he's created for himself over $100 billion worth of net worth over his life. Not too shabby. And what was he doing when he was younger, Mr. Buffett? He was reading the paper all day. He was reading all day. He says he reads 8 hours a day. He was reading all day on different companies and he was making the right investments, buying the right ones. If you want wealth, I mean, this is really the place to play. Now there's risk. You have to work 100 hours a week. It's intense. A lot of people will try to screw you. That's the truth in business, by the way. A lot of people will try to screw you. Bankers will, brokers will, sellers will. Be wary. Not everybody's bad in business, but there's a lot of shady people in business. I dealt with a lot of shady people in 2020. I wish that weren't so, but it just is. It is what it is. I dealt with shady people in 2019 too. Since I've gotten into business, I can't think of an extended period of time where I haven't bumped into a real shark or a sleazy individual. So be wary. But know that if you really have ambition, this is the best place on the freaking planet to play. And that includes if you're an athlete or a singer or whatever. All right? Name to me a singer or an athlete that has $100 billion in net worth created. You know any athletes or anyone that's created $100 billion in net worth? That's not 100 million, that's 100 billion. That's a whole other comma and 3 more zeros. The answer is no. I think Michael Jordan's worth $1 billion or $2 billion. Buffett's got him by damn near 100. Okay, so even if you weren't 6'9", or even if you can't run a 4.3 40 or any of that, you don't need to be able to do that to be able to create the life of your dreams. Now, not all of you want to be wealthy. Not all of you want to work 100 hours a week. But I love the competitiveness and the competition that's involved in buying businesses and in being in business and in being in mergers and acquisitions and in finance and investments. I love it. And if you're that competitive person that desperately wants to create a life of freedom for yourself and for your family, I would implore you to get into this game in 2021.
Hey, it's Jason Rogers. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe, thumbs up the video, and for more, go to jasonpaulrogers.com.